This presentation is about conflict in health and social care teams. Please review the presentation and give some thought to the questions I'll be asking throughout. You'll be discussing these questions when you meet with your team. Do you think that conflict is inevitable? Many of us are not very comfortable with conflict. How about you? These are the learning objectives for this IPST activity. Why is it important to understand the types and sources of conflict? There are three types of conflict described in this slide: relationship, task, and process. Which do you think is the most difficult, and why? It's important for you to note these concepts as we will be referring to them during the team learning activities. Now we'll explore the sources of conflict in a team. Role overlap and scope of practice issues are common sources of conflict for healthcare teams. Why are these issues so difficult? There is often conflict when there are power differentials. Which of the types of power differentials listed on the slide would you expect to be the most common cause of conflict for healthcare teams, and why? This slide identifies ways in which accountability can be a source of conflict and provides some examples. Can you describe a situation in which accountability issues might create conflict in a team? Patient and family issues are often a flashpoint for conflict in teams for a variety of reasons, including the ones highlighted in this slide. Can you think of a situation in which a patient or family-related issue might create conflict on your team? Let's review strategies for managing conflict. All team members contribute in some way to the conflict that occurs in their team, and it's important for you to be aware of your role. At times, you may create the conflict directly, or by siding with one person in a sidebar conversation. Perhaps you may be the person who names the elephant in the room and says, "Let's try to find a solution to this." Even avoidance may escalate the conflict because it doesn't get resolved. Given your conflict management style, how do you think you might contribute to the development of conflict on a team? How do you think your assessing emotion score suggests that you might react in a conflictual situation? This slide graphically depicts the developmental trajectory for conflict. You can see how preventing conflict can happen very early in the process. Here are strategies which can help to prevent misunderstanding, as well as some examples of what the associated behaviors might look like. Which strategy do you think is most important to prevent misunderstanding? Why? The second level of escalation into conflict will be differences of opinion. This slide notes the strategies and behaviors to manage differences of opinion so that they don't develop into conflicts. Which strategy would be most difficult for you to engage in to manage differences? Why? Sometimes you can't prevent conflict, and then it's useful to have a strategy to resolve it. Think about a conflict you've had with a coworker or a member of a project group. Do you think the strategy for conflict resolution outlined in this slide would have worked for you? Why or why not? As a society, we're not very skilled at preventing or managing conflict, and as a result, we tend to avoid conflict or become aggressive in an attempt to settle it. At times, either of these strategies may be appropriate and effective. However, it's important to be familiar with your strengths and challenges in conflict and emotion management so you can make a conscious choice about how to deal with a team conflict rather than use a default strategy that might not be optimal for the situation. We hope that this IPST activity will help you get to that point.